call on people that are watching you on Zoom. They don't know who's who.
Sure. So how does one do a roll
Just
call?
go
Do we just
around and who's here, you say your name and you're present, and everybody just does it.
okay?
That's what we do at the Heritage.
We're not on Zoom. We're just recording.
Oh, okay. But yeah, just like for recording purposes. Sure. Yeah, I think that's a good habit to get into. I'll start
That way, if you've got any new members or audience here too, then they know
away.
who's who.
Sure. All right. Well, I'll just start with roll call then. Yeah, Amanda Reese, chair.
Jenny Stapp.
Jeannie Warding.
Paige Myers, guest.
Helen Paulson.
Ramsey Baloo.
Bridget Johnson staff.
Kathy Macefield, guest. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. With that, I guess before we kind of get into anything, is there any public comment that would like to happen before we kind of get into our agenda items? All right, well, hearing none, I think we can kind of just keep moving along. Let's see, 2 minutes. Are we, how's that doing?
There are, again, no minutes. We just have not had time with switching to the recording portion. I am going to be training a new staff member to do it, so hopefully that will happen soon. She can get them all knocked out, so totally. But until then, the minutes are going to be our recordings. They'll just have some brief minutes that kind of say at this timestamp, this was discussed, and this timestamp, this was discussed. So they're there. They just need to be formatted, but
Easy peasy. Yeah, I think that'll be fine. And I think with the way we've kind of been moving these last few months, it hasn't really been any sort of deterrent to anything. So
yeah. I guess I know this isn't on the agenda, but it is a little bit regarding minutes. I'm just going to throw this in here. There will be a commission meeting on Monday where it is coming up for I don't know what they're really calling it, but they've been working on this for about a year. The commission office has, to where they're trying to kind of streamline all the processes for all the boards. We've talked about it. We were one of the guinea pigs, if you guys remember. But so basically the actual resolution policy is coming before the commission for final approval. And with that is also some standardized bylaws that will be adopted as well within that resolution. I do know that, in Paige, I'm sure you may already know through HCC that in the resolution, they are not going to be approving any commissioners on the boards or any HCC members on the boards. So that's going to be coming through on Monday. So at our next meeting, I will have all that stuff for you. One of the things in there, which sort of ties back to the minutes, is they are requiring that all boards have a secretary. So rather than a staff person basically taking on that role, one of you guys can figure out who it will be and vote to who your secretary will be. And that person will be the person doing some of these things. Staff will still be there to support. We'll be there to get the stuff posted online and things like that. But the secretary would be the ones taking the minutes and putting the agenda together. Those things.
So will that person have access to the recording to do the minute log?
So staff will be sharing it. Staff will have to share it. That's how they'll do it. So
And that's how it used to be too, right? I mean, I'm not sure if you know how far back, but
some boards have had it and some haven't. And that's kind of where that's been. They're finally streamlining everything. So
cool. I think that'll it's fine once we get to that. So
yeah,
we figured it out.
Yeah. So I guess I'm next again. Okay. Oh, so I'm gonna report on the projects.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So the Centennial Trail Tunnel. I got an update from Elise today. She is. Hello.
hi.
She is confident that she's gonna finish by the end of the month as planned. I did have a couple pictures I wanted to show you that she shared today. I can do this from here. Or not. Also, I don't know if you all know, I know that Amanda knows, but there was some graffiti.
Oh,
It's already been, she's already taken care of it. It's been covered up and everything. So in fact, she took care of it the day after it happened. So that is
Whoa.
her extra materials and time. I told her to bill us for, so that's gonna come out of some of our maintenance money.
Mhm.
It was only about $260 or something like that for her to do it. She fixed it in like 4 hours. So anyway, just so you know, that happened.
It says long live King Trey.
It does.
Trey's butthead, apparently.
Trey, apparently, from what we understand, is somebody that died a couple of years ago, like a high schooler, and we think this is the girlfriend that's been tagging the girl in town.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you for that context.
Yeah,
But it's like of all the places.
I know. So this is the new side. I'm sure most of you have seen the other side so far. The other side's about 99% done. This is the other side. She's still obviously working on all of it, but
Well, that looks
that
Yeah,
is,
so
so good. Mhm.
looks like I missed one. Let me see, I had one more. Oh, that one. That's what she shared with me today.
Super. Great, and like I think I know from just looking at her Instagram posts, I believe it was an architecture firm that helped assist her last week. As like, I think it was like part of their community involvement, but she had a big team of from a business here in town that was supporting her and helping do paint by number, which is really cool. So I think for when we do the annual report, I'll get all of that kind of those photos and things from her to kind of show the community involvement that she's added into this project, which is really cool.
Yeah.
What's her Instagram?
I think it's Perfect Nano Art. We've got it on the Coroplast signs we did. Yeah, perfectnano.art. Yeah, it's a great way to follow the process. I should go.
Sure.
Do you know what the graffiti was? I mean, was it like spray paint or was it?
It looked like spray paint,
Oh,
just kind of a quick tag,
mhm.
but unfortunate placement. Which hopefully with the anti-graffiti pellet, that should make, cleaning things up like that really easy, and I think we would just buy, the maintenance materials from our maintenance budget that go along with that sealer. So that way that stuff's always on hand. But from what I understand, you just then spray the stuff on and be able to just kind of wash the top layer off. So.
Regarding the dumpster murals, I've talked with Jim Lang, the solid waste superintendent. And they are more than willing to help. They're willing to do all the things that we've asked for. So getting the dumpsters delivered, cleaning the dumpsters, getting them back home, all of that. So I think we're on schedule for that project as we planned. The last one is Centennial Park. I don't know what you call it, Great Northern Mural, Lindale Mural, whatever we want to call it. That one, we've had some discussions with staff, finance and such about, we were kind of concerned about the carryover. We did get the carryover. And we've kind of gotten some encouragement to still move forward. So we're looking at doing the same timeline as the one we're currently on for this year. So we'll be bringing, I'm gonna try to not do it next month because that's your one more meeting before your report. So I'm gonna try to squeeze it in the following meeting where we look at you guys for some input on that RFP.
Great.
So we expect to do that hopefully in October.
Just ran into Andy Sherwood downstairs and he said, is that mural next?
Did he? Like I said, there's some encouragement to not let it.
Keep it moving.
Yeah, keep it moving. So
That's exciting though. That's good
Yeah,
news. Thank you.
It is, it's great. The art space, the only reason I wanted to report on this was because I know that Max had brought it up at a meeting before, so I did reach out to, I don't know if anybody knows who Ellie Ray is, but she's the senior planner for the city of Helena. And she is the one from the city side. I know a lot of people worked with the art space people when they came to town, but for the city, she was our representative. So she spent like a week with them. So she gave me a quick update. I was just gonna read it. So you guys, just keep you guys updated. She said it was a short visit from 2 of the Minneapolis-based team members working on a feasibility study. packed full of visits to an array of arts organizations and prospective sites for conversion to affordable housing and workspaces for artists. There were presentations to members of the public and arts sectors, as well as a few local city officials. Excuse me, I didn't bring my drink up. To better gauge the need for such a housing development in the community. The art space team walked away with a sound understanding of the strength, breadth, and depth of arts offerings in the community, as well as a pronounced need for affordable housing for artists of all stripes. The feasibility study drafting is underway right
Cool.
now. Oh, and then I just want to let you know that I do have you guys scheduled now, and your report is scheduled for October 25th.
Great. And with that annual report, is that also the budget request due for the next
Yeah,
year?
so I mean, we don't really have an official name for it. I think in the actual Novus memo, I put recommendations.
Okay.
So it is when you make your recommendations for FY20.
Okay. Wanted to make sure if that was like two separate PowerPoints or kind of one together.
One kind of open.
Great. And I think just with the timeline we're working with, I can start putting together that annual report basically just based off of what we came up with for the May one, using that as like a base, and then I'll have something maybe to present to you guys next month as we prepare for that, so that way I can get any feedback and other things we'd maybe like to add or fine tune. So. Oh, and I do have one question, Bridget, as far as the Centennial Trail Tunnel goes. Are we gonna wait until she's completely finished with the mural before we do you plan any sort of like dedication event?
I am planning a ribbon cutting. I was hoping to get an exact date from her maybe next week. I've talked with Jake Garson, our PIO. We'll put a press release together, and then we'll pick a date to actually do that. And of course, I'll inform all of you that date as soon as I have it, so you guys can plan on it.
Exciting, thank you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sure, we'll be able to make whatever. Yeah.
So will the mayor cut the ribbon or,
I don't know.
has he been invited to do that?
We haven't picked the date yet, so
What?
we haven't picked a date yet.
Okay.
Yeah, super exciting. I'm glad she's chugging along and thinks we can get it done by the timeline. So that's always nice.
Yeah, she's working over nights and weekends. And
Mhm.
Exciting though. Is there anything else for staff reports or?
nothing for me. Does anybody have any questions for me regarding any?
Thank you. Great, and yeah, and then we're just moving on to the signal box art. So all 4 of those traffic signal boxes that we chosen have been wrapped as of, I think, June or July. I went while I was kind of running errands and snapped some photos of each of them, and I'll put those in our Dropbox. We still need to kind of post about these on Facebook and all of that, so maybe come up with a plan for if we want to just do them all in one or do 4 separate posts or however we want to talk about it. But yeah, I put this together to be like on the City of Helena's like resource section. Yeah, and then I also threw in all of the previous years, just because we had them in that way. There's kind of reference of all the things that they've done through the years. So,
I was gonna ask you, Amanda, I'm assuming you put this together. Do you have a template that you could share with me that I could keep?
Heck yeah,
So that when you're gone, we can maybe keep updating it.
absolutely.
And I do have most all of, what did you make it in?
I made it in Adobe Illustrator.
Okay,
But
perfect. I have that useful too. So if you could send me that, I'd love that.
awesome. Yeah, I can send you kind of any and everything I've made. So that way you just got it.
Okay, yeah, because I think this is great. And
Mm.
I think it'll also be very useful when we do our call for artists.
Oh,
to share
totally.
Something like this.
Excited that project has finally come to fruition. For many, feels like years.
I know,
But we did it.
Years.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for 2 years.
But yeah, and I think the artists too are excited to see their work out. I did notice, and I don't know, I just kind of zoomed by, but the signal box on the corner of Euclid and Benton, is that corner of the Imperial College corner. It looks like somebody hit that signal box.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it didn't look like it was hit to the point of where they had to immediately come in. And I don't know, yeah, it looked like it, I mean, I don't think I would have made it yet, a little dented. So that's something maybe we'll have to kind of keep in touch with the that department, and then if they are replacing it, if they could just let us know, because we could potentially just use money from the maintenance budget to replace that, if it ends up having to be completely redone. But yeah, I think that's all I've got for traffic signal box. Oh yeah, and then the rail yard mural update. So for those of us that weren't here last month, we had Megan Malkin come and present the rail yard mural that is that makerspace in the 6th Ward. And it's a mural being done by David Goodson. And so she was just sharing some information about that. Their funding, they got about half the funds through the railroad TIF. And I know the mural is currently in progress. It's coming along. I'm not sure exactly what the timeline is, but
he's making good progress.
Yeah.
My kids have been climbing camp all week, so we've been looking at it every day. It changes every.
oh, that's
week.
awesome.
Yeah, he's got the train up and he's got the borders and the figures all painted in. So it's beyond halfway. Looks like it.
Oh, that's exciting. But I'm trying to think, I wish I would have had a photo of that to kind of share with everyone. But I believe at that last meeting, we did kind of share with her some ideas on how to try and procure more funds. She was trying to have the second half of it be kind of raised with community funds. And I believe, let me check what her GoFundMe is at right now. I just have to look it up this morning.
I do have a picture of that one down in the 6th Ward, but I don't remember how to put it up here.
If you want to text it to
I
me.
do have.
Send it to you.
Send it to me, I'll put it up.
And so, yeah, and then the photo on the left was like a photo of the original owner. It was like an old photograph of him. But so it looks like at this time, she's raised about $3,210. And that's of a 4,888 goal. Yeah, it looks like the fundraising has kind of dropped off the last week or so, and there haven't been any new. But at our last meeting, she did kind of express some that she is looking for funds, and expressed some interest in seeing if there could be some sort of opportunity with the Helena Public Art Committee, and just wondering wanted to kind of open that up for discussion with everyone and see what our thoughts are.
So we have $5,000 in that kitty that we can disperse.
Well, I believe we have a $5,000 community collaboration budget, and then we asked for a opportunity budget, which was $1,000, but then we still have to, the project would still need to be approved by the commission. It's just for this year, it's kind of happening a little cart before the horse. And so that's why I think for future recommendations, we're going to have it all super lined out. So that way it's all just done beforehand. But we do have, yeah, and I've got that from when we get down to it for strategic planning document. But yeah, it was a $1,000 opportunity budget that we had kind of outlined for projects kind of such as this, for when they're if it's if that money could help make something, get something to the finish line.
And we have that available right now. That's not for the October proposal.
Yes, this is in this fiscal year.
Okay, gotcha.
So if we wanted to put funding towards this particular mural, we would make a proposal that would go to the commission. Correct. Oh, that does, yeah, yes.
But is that, did she say that this mural was already approved by the commission?
So she had about $4,000 in TIF funds approved.
Okay,
And so that is, taxpayer funds, like city, technically, I think it's city funds. That is already kind of paying for the project. And so, and then I believe it was about $8,000, almost $9,000 goal that they were trying to achieve with that. And so I think with the remaining funds that they would be looking for would be about $1,000 would be my guesstimate. And I wish she could have been here at tonight's meeting to kind of answer a few more of these questions.
so we would have to get this like reapproved by the commission to give her the 1,000, is that right?
I believe so. This is kind of uncharted territory.
So if that's what HPAC wants to commit that $1,000 to, what you would do is you would vote as a committee that that's what you want to do. And then staff will take it to the commission for approval.
Oh, okay.
And we would just get it on the meeting, the next meeting that we can get it on. So that's how it happened. You could also be there to present if you wanted to.
Sure.
We would just try to get it through as fast as possible.
Yeah, as fast as possible. Totally. I think with the timeliness of this. Yeah.
And we have until the end of June to spend that $1,000. So we could be committed up early or wait.
Right. And but then we do potentially have, another $5,000 too.
Yeah.
To find with maybe a different organization or something to kind of do a little bit bigger of a project.
So which project were you talking about for the 1,000?
So I think what we're potentially considering is that $1,000 opportunity budget, being used to help get, this rail yard mural to a fundraising goal to the finish line.
Oh, okay. For this one.
Yes, for this one. Yeah, does anyone have any thoughts on that? Or
Well, can we make a motion now?
let's see. Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, I make a motion to approve $1,000 for the rail yard mural from our budget.
Second that.
See, is there any kind of further discussion or public comment that would like to occur before we take a vote on that?
Will they put the anti-graffiti spray up?
She mentioned that they were.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good thing to consider.
Yeah, like you said, I think this is the kind of opportunity we were looking for when we were proposing that model. So I think it makes sense.
Absolutely, great. All right, so all in favor of recommending that Helena Public Art Committee's $1,000 opportunity budget be used to support the rail yard mural in the 6th Ward District? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll consider it moved.
Yeah, so I will work with this commission office to get that on the next available meeting, and I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Okay.
And just let us know if there's any way we can support that.
So moving forward, like with the opportunity budget and the $5,000 micro grant or seedling grant, are these opportunities that we want to advertise? Because right now it's kind of word of mouth, right? Which is great, but also limits who is going to be plugged into those opportunities. And so I'm, in terms of equity, I'm wondering if like in the next year or in our strategic plan, we build in, I don't know what's better. It's a genuine question of like,
How do you make these opportunities
visible to people.
equitable? Yeah, it's a totally valid thing to consider. And I think what's hard with this too is just this kind of
It's such a small amount of money.
Yeah, and it's like we're kind of at the whim of just these only meeting every month, meeting
Right.
these timelines and
Yeah,
I think
like
you're
it could
right.
open up a can of worms in terms, like in a lot of ways. to advertise it, because then there's high competition for very tiny little pot of money that can't really be split. You know, $500 is not gonna really help anybody unless it's an individual artist doing an individual project, but
Seems like it's worth trying to promote it and see what the response is, figuring out what the challenges might be, because I agree. I think that's, I mean, these are public funds, so I would feel better about doing that than word of mouth,
yeah,
like first come, first serve.
right. Yeah, or the other option is like we seek out those projects, but
Yeah, it's definitely something to kind of consider how we can kind of factor that in. And hopefully maybe, if this committee is able to continue to do more community collaborations, it's like, it'll get a little bit more traction, and then, it's like more people will learn, that these opportunities exist, and that, hopefully the more we do it, we'll kind of get our footing a little bit more.
right.
Is there a match requirement for people who want to get this opportunity money?
Trying to remember how, I think, how we, I'd have to look back at our budget request. I think there would have to be some sort of match, and I think we left it as like an open, where it wouldn't be like a necessarily, but it would have to be, funds that would be going into a larger kind of budget item.
Demonstrate that there are other partners.
Exactly.
Bridget, you mentioned a NOVA process. Does the city do notice of funding opportunities like that from time to time?
I don't know. I can definitely look into that.
It seems like that would be a way to do it. Just, there's these funds available. That's where we could specify the amount of funding, the types of projects, whether or not there's any kind of partnership or matching requirements, and give them a deadline to respond.
Yeah, I know at the Halter, like exhibition proposals were, like when I came in, they were on just a rolling basis, and people would just propose an exhibition, and then I would vet it and we would review it just on like a case by case basis. And that very quickly got very overwhelming, because it's just constant proposals, constant reviews, and it would just take so much away from mental capacity to focus on bigger things, or more long-term projects. And so I just cut it into a quarterly review system and just said, I only answer these emails, I only look at these proposals quarterly and through committee, and just made it a very transparent and concrete process so that people didn't expect to hear from me before a certain date. And that helped a lot. But with this small amount of money,
It is pretty small.
And projects come up in different cycles. So,
Right. Well, I think hopefully too with,
but to like admin load and like the stress, like, oh, now we're taking half of every meeting to look at proposals when we only meet once a month. Like, that's just not an efficient use of time for $5,000 or $1,000, but.
And like hopefully too, I think how we kind of worded it in the strategic plan, it's like, I feel like, us as, members of this community in the art community, it's like, we really already know a lot of those connections that we can hopefully, bring before the committee, and like use the resources of our committee as, as it is, to really try and, find the right people that have the right opportunities that, need, extra funds to get projects off the ground.
I found the language. Says the Helena Public Art Committee would like to support the efforts of a community organization-led project with matching funds up to $5,000 for a public art project that represents the unique and historical identity of our community and is a source of pride to residents. The HPAC will identify a project through inquiries to the Helena Citizens Council, the Helena Downtown Business Association, servicing organizations, etc.
So right now, it's like we seek out those projects.
Yeah, we seek out, or it says, inquiries through, but I think it would be a good idea to at least maybe put the word out, even if it's just on your Facebook page or something on the city website, on our page of the website. We could at least put that opportunity is available to reach out or something, but so you're not like hardcore recruiting it, but at least people can kind of, if they're looking, they can find it maybe.
Right. I think to Ramsey's point though, of like being scheduled about it, I think that's important. one, to manage administrative costs, but also just to set expectations. You know, if somebody hears about it and somebody else doesn't hear about it, I think that could be concerning. So, you know, even if it is sort of a light touch promotion, giving people a deadline when they know they need to respond by and when the committee would be considering them, I think is important.
Yeah, like having a system of like, well, you need to have this proposed, so we need to get it on the agenda and we need to meet. So that, because our timeline is different than the general public timeline.
Absolutely. And I think what's kind of also another challenge too is like we're already going into fall, you know, and suddenly then it's holidays and then suddenly it's January and we have all these other call for artists that are going to be, you know, happening. And so, yeah, how can we kind of plan it all in a way that you don't kind of drown ourselves?
Yes.
Bless you.
Yeah, no, this was a great conversation. I think, yeah, getting kind of closer to coming up with some, you know, it's like how can we keep this as equitable as possible? Yeah, great discussion. So I think with that, we can kind of just go into our fiscal year 25-26 strategic planning. And with that, do you possibly have that file that I had sent by chance? It was so it was like a strategic plan draft. I think it was maybe I sent it with my agenda items. So if not, I printed out 3. So I can use my iPad as mine. I'll just pull mine up. I can maybe resend it. Okay. But yeah, so basically I took our discussion from last month about the timeline and how all of these things fit together and just, you know, try to put it into a new planning document. So that way we can kind of just go through, you know, starting this month and then how everything starts to kind of fit into place. Pulled up on
Okay.
yeah, here, and I use your
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so I think basically, I laid out, you know, our fiscal year 24 budget items. You know, we have the $15,000, you know, with Elise in the tunnel, and that's in progress. And then we've got, as we mentioned, we've got that 5,000 community collaboration and pre-development, no better word for that. $1,000 opportunity budget, which now hopefully will be used towards the rail yard mural. As well as our $5,000 for the 5 dumpster murals on city-owned properties. And so last we spoke, we were trying to figure out, you know, how that money should be kind of allocated. And I figured out that for supplies, it's an estimate. I estimated about $1,250. And that would be for primer, for anti-graffiti sealant, and also for the safety decals that we would put back on the top that we could do, and maybe in a fun color to match whatever the art is. So I budgeted about $1,250 for that, which would leave us $750 for the artist commission and their supplies. And for that times 5 is $3,750. So with that gets us to our 5,000. And I believe that's about what the Rodney dumpster artists got. Theirs was 500 and then 250 in supplies. Oh, thank you for pulling that up, Bridget. We've got that on the big screen now too, so for everyone.
But print margin.
Yeah, oh yeah. Better than the phone. And so I think what we and maybe want to fine tune, or maybe just to clarify for everyone, is kind of how that timeline would work for the dumpster art. Working backwards, we would want it to happen around the spring art walk, which would mean that we would probably want all artist contracts signed by April. And then kind of looking at, you know, having the artists, you know, doing our call for artists in early January. And then, you know, this call for artists, I see, wouldn't have to be open as long as, say, like a big mural project. You know, I think a month would be appropriate, and we could have that deadline end, you know, right before our next meeting. So that way it's a really quick turnover where we can quickly pick the artists. But in theory, yeah, it would be nice if we could have that call for artists in January and then artist selection in February. So, but as far as that goes, does anyone have any kind of thoughts or comments or questions as far as that timeline for dumpsters goes?
So Troy and I actually have been doing our project planning the last couple of weeks, and we have a timeline for that project.
Cool. Okay.
I didn't bring it because I didn't know you guys were gonna be discussing that.
Sure. I was just, I think the reason I mentioned it is because I'm trying to figure out, yeah, when that, when then the other tunnel call for art would be, so that way there's not two call for artists happening in the same month. Yeah, I'm just not wanting to overwhelm. But yeah, Bridget, if you guys already have like a project plan for that,
We do. We actually
that's
have
fantastic.
We actually have all of them planned, including the new one.
Cool. Yeah, because mine was just listing a month, and that was it. So. And I think what we would need, and I'm not sure we potentially already have this, if we would want to triple confirm what those locations are. I'm not sure if we've 100%, you know, hard stamped those yet. And that would maybe be a question, but I'll let her do one thing at a time here.
We confirmed 4 of them for sure. So this is our, we're not done, but let's see. There's the Boulevard Centennial mural. That's the one that we're just finishing up. So you can see we're finishing that up right here quickly. The dumpster murals, we've got, we don't necessarily have we have May 6th. That's not a hard line right now. We're gonna go over our RFP input with you and get an exact deadline for the date we want to do the event. Okay, this was all the stuff. Sorry. Artists. You thinking of that?
I was thinking January.
Okay, that's what we have.
Great.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and we just have to align our projects with all, with all of them in mind.
Oh, this is super cool.
And then, so on the dumpster,
Project management stuff,
Windale
that's so
Tunnel.
awesome.
Yeah. I know I nerd out over this stuff so hard.
Windale Tunnel. We don't have all the stuff in here yet, but we kind of just put like the beginning and the ending. We're hoping to maybe possibly have the artwork done like May and June instead of like June, July, August. We can actually finish it in the fiscal year. But that's really all as far as we got, as far as we didn't get all the stuff put in for that one yet. But that's what we were looking at for those 3.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, I'll take this one.
Yeah, I guess in terms of, and I think we might still have some time of, depending on, what those final locations are. I did just drive by the dumpster that's right next to like the swimming, like it's at Memorial Park, but the Last Chance Swim Park.
Cool.
And I saw that one of theirs had a big tag on it. It's like, oh, maybe that could be a good location for, it's like proximity to kids and stuff. But the dumpsters at that park could be another potential idea. Okay. But yeah, I think that's a kind of all I've got for like our, that we need to worry about right now for fiscal year 24.
Can I just make a recommendation about the community collaboration funds?
Mhm.
I mean, if we did do kind of a soft announcement and shared it on our social media and reached out to those different groups, if we asked for presentations or recommendations for funding opportunities like in October, November, and we could pick one, then basically all we're doing is awarding the funds, right? And then they have to have them spent by the end of the fiscal year.
I mean, it's a donation, so. I
We
don't
just
know.
have to spend them by the end
We
of
have
the
to,
fiscal year.
obligate them by the end.
They don't have to spend them.
Okay, obligate them.
Right,
Yeah.
and I mean, I think that it would be important for you as a committee to decide what kind of parameters you want to put up around
Sure,
that. You know, like, do you want it to be just straight up donation like you did for the Sixth Ward mural last year? There wasn't really, it's kind of like we just gave them the money. That is kind of one of the things that created the fact that it needs to go to the commission because they weren't happy with the rat on there. And to have the city of Helena's name on it associated with that, that was kind of actually one of the reasons why we're doing it the way we're doing it now. Yeah, I mean, I think it's up to you, just like, TIF sets up how they want, their grant funding to work. Do you want it to be reimbursable? Do you want any control over it? I mean, I think that's something that you guys have to decide, especially when you do it year after year, kind of put it in place.
Why were they unhappy with that?
Somebody could think about that.
Yeah. Just some people thought it was a little derogatory. There was some feedback.
Yeah, the mayor's office, I think, got a few calls. And it's one of those things, I think, with the mural like that, it's hard to really understand the context of what, of what, I think Megan had a lot of really interesting points as to, more context, because I also didn't know.
Yeah, we suggested that they put up a historic plaque that talks about the Sixth Ward rats and the why that figure is important to them. I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but to your point, having some of those kinds of stipulations might be helpful.
Yeah, being able to kind of have some sort of kind of control as a committee, or at least kind of a say in things, because I feel like that one just it came up so fast, that it got done so fast.
Yeah, and I didn't think about it when we were talking about it earlier, but if you do, like, I mean, you guys went through the TIP process, and it's the same thing. You go to the TIP board, you make your recommendation to them, they make their recommendation, it still has to go to the commission for approval. So it's still the same. It's the same process that we go through.
But when you're talking about the process, would a person who's thinking about doing some public art through TIF funding, wouldn't they come here first before they'd go to the TIF board? No.
This committee is not a regulatory committee. It's not anything like that. It doesn't
Right,
mean
it's
that all
advisory.
public art goes through them. It's just a board that advises the city commission on what the city can do for public art. It's really what the recommendations are. So not all public art, just like the mural down at the new one that you were talking about earlier. Doesn't have to come to this committee or anything.
Right. And I think just one more thing to touch on with the fiscal year 24. I know in our strategic plan, the last few years, we've talked about that 1.5% for art tax. And I think it was last spring, you had maybe, Jenny mentioned, exploring that. Is that something that you're still interested in taking on? And like, do we want to kind of outline a soft timeline for?
Yeah, let me give that some thought. Sure, at least have an exploratory call.
Cool, that would be wonderful. Okay. But yeah, I think we've got about, is it a year left on our? I think so, tenure, and then the three of us drop off.
I think so. I think you're right.
Yeah. So yeah, any ducks we can get in a row before that should be awesome. Okay, great. Yeah, I just didn't want to add it in without being able to kind of chat with you a little bit first. But that would be really great. And then kind of going into fiscal year 25 budget. So this is what we would be kind of recommending for this next, to the commission for this next fiscal year. So this would be starting in July of 24. what year are we in? Yeah, 24.
That is correct.
And so now, based off of the staff report that Bridget gave us, now that we've got that approximately $7,000, that carried over, we can. I had kind of quickly just outlined, tried to figure out how all this money would kind of fit together. And I think we had come up with an approximate number of about 21,000, if that were to include the north face, the south face, and the interior walls, which I believe it's about 2,400 square feet, but it also factors in scaffolding because it's not just flat on the ground like the Centennial Trail Tunnel. And so that's kind of factored into the cost a little bit too. And so this is just, of course, like a quick, proposal that I put together. So, because that $7,000, carried over, we could potentially ask, the city to, put forth another $7,000 for this project. And then for the final third, we could we could look for grant funds, we could look for TIF funds or another funding source. This is something I'd love to discuss as a group, whether we shoot to try and raise, $14,000 or try and apply for a grant for the 7,000 of just, trying to figure out what's the most feasible for us as a group. I didn't want to have to, or at least this was my feelings personally, but I didn't want to have to rely on having to get multiple grants from multiple sources, because sometimes, you need that money that's already, given to be able to apply for other funds. So I didn't want to shoot so high on for funding that we all burned ourselves out.
Yeah.
There are some great grant opportunities that I think would be would be perfect. One of which would be the Northwest Energy Charitable Giving Grant. I think Bridget had chatted with him just briefly via email last year, and this projects like this would qualify, and also projects that they consider are also in proximity. It's like proximity to locations is something that they consider in their corporate. One of their headquarters is right there next to the Centennial Tunnel mural. So that could be something that we look into, potentially looking into that Northwest Energy Grant. And then if that doesn't pan out, we could hopefully have enough time to then still apply for the downtown TIF funds come December. So with that thought and a timeline, and of course, this can be altered to whatever, you guys have already outlined. That budget request would be October. November, December, we would be applying for those grants. And then the call for artists could either happen in February or March. Probably February would be better because it would give it more time, especially if there's, for whatever reason, not enough, people that are responding. It would just be able to give us a little bit more wiggle room. And then I think we could then kind of go to a fairly similar timeline to what the current tunnel is, where the artists selected in April, contracts signed in, May, and then work. And then I wasn't sure with it being a new fiscal year, if the work could begin before that fiscal year.
No, and that's where, so you are making your recommendations in October. And I know that's very early. It's way earlier than anything you've ever had to do. The reason for that, and this will be in that document that I bring next month. We had a meeting today online, and she went over the document, so it's the first time I'd seen it. And it basically is setting it up to be where what we've tried to implement the last year. It's been kind of hard. We're trying to we're still kind of struggling, right? Like when you're like, oh, I'm done with this time, I'm like, we already have a timeline. And that's because what we've been instructed is that you guys make the recommendations. If the commission approves those recommendations, then the commission, they then give that down to the city manager, and the city manager then sends that to whichever staff they feel it is appropriate for. It may be us, most of the times it will be us, but it may be another department. Then that staff at that point has to do their due diligence to vet the project, find out about funding. For us, we're lucky in that you guys are very helpful in that and do a lot of that work. And of course, a lot of times you're also helping decide like how much should we pay the artist and all that kind of stuff. So staff does all that vetting, and then we take that back to the city manager for basically, yes, it's viable, it's not viable, and now we're gonna ask for a new budget. So that's why from October until we start our budget process, which is more like January, February, we're doing that vetting on the direction of the city manager, which came down from the commission, which came from the recommendation. So then we take that, once the budget's approved, if the commission approves all those budgets, they're already known, they've already been reported from you guys about what it was, they already said yes, but they want to see it. Now it's coming before them in the official budget format. And then we follow the budget process, and that those funds don't become available until July 1st. So all of that stuff, like you can still apply for the grants, but like the March 2024, that really wouldn't start happening until at least July 1st.
Okay,
Until
so
we have
you
budget
can't even
approval.
call for the artists until.
No, we can't start a project until we have confirmed funding.
I got you. Okay, all right. Thank you for the clarification on that.
Yeah, I know it's super
And
complicated.
then yeah, definitely makes this project a little bit more of a challenge because most artists are applying for called artists in January and February, and then all of their projects are already booked
Mhm.
by then. So I do have concerns of being able to get viable artists that are interested
Mhm.
that late in the
So
game.
your second phase would probably actually be the summer of 25, which is the end of that budget year.
Mm,
Because this year it would be that first phase that we were able to keep the money for.
gotcha.
So second phase would be 2025. So you can still do call for artists in January. It's just gonna be January 2025.
I gotcha. Yeah, I think what makes this really challenging too is then things we wanted to explore, for it kind of pushes then everything, it pushes everything,
Yeah,
it pushes everything back
so it
here.
makes this adjustment year kind of like either cram it all in or have kind of a lame duck year.
Lame duck. Yeah, so we'll have to kind of get that figured out. So yeah, I think that timeline can of course adjust whatever it needs to be to make things happen, but if a call for artists can't happen, yeah, at that point, I think we would, wait until the whole next year, so that way we're able to get, as many interested parties as possible to have
I
that
don't think you
opportunity.
I don't think you have a lame duck here. Like this January is when you'll have the call for artists for the dumpster art, the Centennial or the Lindale Tunnel. I'm not saying they're both in January, but they're both like this winter. And then you'll have that art being done this spring and summer, and then next winter you'll have the 2025. So you're not missing a year.
Oh, okay, all right, I was thinking you were saying that the call for artists couldn't happen then until the next, not this January, but the next January.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be January, but if you're wanting January, it'd be January 25 to get the artwork done in spring or summer of 2025. These are projects.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Gotcha. All right, but yeah, I guess with that, we'll still kind of continue to recommend the Lindale Tunnel. It's our fiscal year 25 budget for the amount of approximately $21,000. And so I can put together, I'll just copy and paste what we had put together for the Centennial Tunnel stuff. And then as far as what we had also discussed as committee last month, in our strategic plan, if a member's term is 3 years, how can we mix up these smaller projects? And so we decided on, 1 year could be dumpsters, 1 year could be signal box wraps, and then the next could be really focusing on community collaborations. So that way, and every time like a new member comes to this board, they have different opportunities every year to kind of keep them interested. And so for this, we're considering signal box wraps. I just put in the 5,000 to get us started because that's what we requested last time. And then it depends on how much we want to request for the artist commission, for the wrap installation. If we stuck to the same numbers as last time, we could get 4 signal boxes for $5,000. Granted, we do have about at least 18 signal boxes left that are blank in the city of Helena. And so it would be nice if we could kind of bump up that number to then get a lot more covered, before, so we can try and get a lot more covered before suddenly the old ones need to be replaced.
Right.
One of them is in front of the state library. And I would definitely have funding to fund it if we could work through this process to get it done.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
And I'm sure that one needs DOT involvement. It's the one on the corner of Montana and all of them.
Yeah, and I believe all that remain are all MDOT. So I think all of them would require an easement, which kind of works because we've got time to plan around that, and then it would just kind of open up the opportunities for them. And I believe I have a list of those that I know of that we haven't touched, and so I could I believe that's in our Dropbox. But at one of these next meetings, we can kind of look at that whole list potentially and pick those. And there also might be some opportunities, say, with different, like a kind of a community collaboration of, I don't know, just throwing this out there, but like Visit Helena or something like that, that could potentially, we could collaborate on funds to be able to wrap more boxes and then hopefully get more word out to artists as well, because I know that's something that can be a challenge sometimes. So with that, like, does anyone have any thoughts on kind of what kind of goal of how many signal boxes we would like to have, wrapped? I'm trying to remember how many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that year and 8 previous year. So we were 18. Yeah, 18 at least.
Do you know the lifespan of a wrap?
They say it's about 5 to 7 years, but all of these that haven't been hit still seem fine.
Yeah.
And I know Bozeman, they just replaced theirs that have been up for 10 years, but I think it was just because they had the funds that they could, and but their wraps were still in fine condition 10 years later.
Did they use the previous designs or did they do
New call for artists? And through that too, I copied their information of image resolution specs that I just kind of put in here to just keep for reference, because they work directly with that company, Clean Slate Group. And so I think they got the specs from them. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna save that. So that way, because we can get to make sure that our art's not super pixelated, because it's like a hard, conversation to have with an artist when they just have no concept of, like, I gave you an art this big, why isn't it working? I know that was kind of a challenge with some of the ones we had, but yeah, any thoughts on how many boxes we'd like to shoot for? And then we can kind of plan our budget around that.
Per year?
Yeah, or just for this year, do we want to, set our goal for more than 4? Do we want it to be, 8? Do we want it to be 9? If we did
9, then that would be 2
Yeah.
more rounds.
Yeah.
Reasonable.
Seems doable. And if we did some kind of community challenge, $12.50, get a local business or organization to donate $12.50 to do a wrap, that seems like something that groups might want to contribute to. Like we said, the state library, I know we would.
Cool. Yeah, I think what we dealt with last time is we just needed to decide the locations first, and then from there we could ask. Yeah, so I can update this in our request to be for whatever that budget amount would be for 9 signal boxes. I can't do the math right off the top of my head. But from there, I think this would be for the fiscal year 25 budget. So I quickly just put in a timeline. This of course would change based off of everything else that we've got going on and when that all shakes out. So I'll leave that to Bridget and your cool programming software. And then I still included the line items for 1,500 public art maintenance, as well as the 500 for promotional materials. And I think, as we've mentioned before, if we did want, I think that's plenty for one fiscal year, but any future community collaborations, we would want like a specific project kind of outlined. And so we can kind of factor that in. And then I quickly just put for kind of future planning, so we can kind of see how we could fit in the bandshell mural, into our future planning. And I think for the fiscal year 26 budget, that's what I would love to see, the community able to kind of bring forth.
at this point, it would be almost an entirely new committee, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, but I think setting that target's a good idea. Absolutely. And so right now, I think we have got plenty of time to do that planning as far as what we would recommend for the artist commission. Bridget was able to find all the original information, so I could put that in our Dropbox of the square footage, the cool trees. Yeah, I remember those trees. And then as far as what they did for their budget and everything like that. So I think we could use this as a base for what we would for some other things that we would recommend to the city to kind of either add or adjust on that RFP. It's about 1,500 square feet on the interior of the shell, and I think I think the square footage of the wings is about 400, if I remember correctly. But that's something that we can all save for a later meeting. Same for, it's like this future planning for that community collaboration, whether we, start to reach out to, I think it was last spring, we had talked about food share and some things like that. So so things kind of in the future that we could, some of those specific organizations that we can reach out to and see what opportunities might come up.
That's great. That's amazing. That's awesome to have multiple years outlining some projects, because that will give a new committee something to go on a lot quicker than what we can.
Right, exactly. It was instead of them trying to reinvent the wheel like we did multiple times.
Yeah.
So many, we
Spent
came
a
up
lot
with
of
so many
meetings just be
wheels.
like, wait, what's going on?
Right. Exactly. So if we could just, set this up to just
set people up for success.
exactly. And so that's the hope.
Okay, so on the, I was looking on the funding options for the band shell mural. And I didn't know if that was going to come out of the Parks Department budget, because I think that's where it came from last time. But a couple of things to think about, that's in the railroad TIF. So there might be some funding there for that one, because the other tunnel underneath Lindale, that's in the downtown TIF. So the band shell murals in the railroad TIF. And T-Mobile, and that's what I sent to you. T-Mobile has come up with a new grant up to 50,000 for communities, small communities. And so that might be worth looking at to see. It's not clear how it fits the arts, but it says the arts. So, but it doesn't give any kind of definition or anything. But that might be an option for some of these big projects, so that if you can get another funding stream rather than the city having to come up with all of it. So might be helpful.
Yeah, that's great. I'll definitely kind of add those into this document, so that way, won't forget about it. Yeah, I think with that, I'll be able to kind of update this a little bit and take this information to then put into our recommendations for next month. That'll then get approval and thoughts from everybody.
Great.
Amanda, I have a recommendation for you. I also did the city county building board advisory board meeting, whatever. Long name. And when we discussed the xeriscape garden that we're adding to over at the Lawn Justice Center, it's quite pricey. And I had at that time, and when I go to that meeting, I have a city commissioner, county commissioner, and then the city manager and the county administrator who's on that. And I suggested at that time that to help fund that garden, that we could do things where people could donate for a tree, but like, you've seen this at other places, right? Where there's like, oh, this tree is, supported by so-and-so. Same with, like, we're putting out some seating, some benches and things like that mentioned the same thing. They were not in favor, at least the city manager was not in favor of us going out into the community and asking for funding. He shot it down completely. We did get to budget, at least for the full garden, through our budget. But so I guess my recommendation to you would be that I would probably, in your presentation recommendations, would make sure that you do talk a bit about the raising the funds that you want to raise, the extra funds that you want to raise on top of what they're willing to give you. So that they understand, and we have to find out if they're supportive of it, because they have
Yeah.
to support it and send that direction down to the manager. In order for us to really do that. So I just want to kind of give you that you need to get their buy-in on
On
raising
fundraising.
the funds, because it's,
Project.
yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, where those funds.
Yeah, because
come
those funds are being raised in the name of the city, so they need to be supportive of that. So I guess we'll just talk about that in your October meeting
from. Okay.
to
well, that's
see what
great.
kind of feedback you get from them.
Or they could just go from there.
They could, and you can ask for that. I mean, there is money,
it's a-
and I think that's part of it. Yeah.
Show the full cost for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll kind of outline that and then you guys can help me kind of fine tune next month how that looks and how we talk about it. Yep. Great. All right, with that, what else do we have on this agenda? I'll try and get us wrapped up here. I know, sorry, I keep making you shuffle between files.
Quite all right.
Oh, yeah, all right, yeah, should be pretty quick. Public arts events and promotion opportunities. We've got the Soapbox Derby coming up this September. And I know in the past, Ramsey's.
Yeah, Max and I did it last time, I think.
Mhm.
If I have it open, let me just check my calendar. And if I can, I will still work that.
Max has an unexcused absence. We just gotta be. It's okay, he survived.
Selling his firstborn,
I
is that the deal?
Yeah, right. I think that's what it was. But yeah, so that was just kind of my question. And if you weren't available or you just didn't have the means, if
No, I
anyone
think I
else was
can do
interested.
that. It's both the 16th and the 17th.
I think it's my assumption is that we could probably just stick with the 17th instead of.
Is the day before building your soapbox?
It might be. I think it was just such a big event that they turned it into a two-day thing. But yeah, I bet that the first is just kind of showing off the cars. But I can get a little bit more details from that.
Okay.
And Max might be able to talk to John Fendi of the Downtown Helena, get some info.
Okay, that sounds great. I've got it on my calendar.
Great. And then as the only other thing that I will mention as far as just like public art events, the Helena Indian Alliance recently acquired a large scale mural from Louis Still Smoking from Tinworks, which is an art space in Bozeman. But it's super cool. I believe it's going to be going on the side of the Helena Indian Alliance building. I wish I had a photo. I'll send one to you guys after this meeting, but it's huge. And it's going to be really cool. And so they're having a dedication event, I believe, on August 25th. Yes, at 2 p.m. And so I'll just kind of send everybody an email if you're interested with some info. But I just learned about that today, which is pretty exciting. So it's cool to see that kind of other big large scale arts. We're doing it. We're working on it.
Put it on the map.
Yeah.
So is that on their new building, the addition that they just put on Lindale?
That's what I'm assuming.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it was Tinworks is a really cool space in Bozeman, but they had commissioned it last year. And I believe the space that there is kind of a rotating artist every summer. And so then different organizations could then acquire those works. Let's see. Yeah. But yeah, it's pretty huge. It's on these big panels that then can be reinstalled anywhere. Sorry, my tiny.
So will it be permanent or?
Amanda, you haven't learned how to share. To the
I
board.
have not.
Next time.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's just some exciting arts things that's happening around. And then communications. I believe just for Facebook, we just want to share those traffic signal boxes now that they're done. And I could just work with you on that, coming up with a plan. And then potentially for our next meeting, we could, I'm not sure if anyone would want to take this on or if we could just do it at our next meeting of figuring out kind of what their soft kind of call for community collaborations would look like.
Yeah.
If someone
I
would be
can
willing
write
to.
down
kind of-
some ideas. The timeline still confuses me a little bit, but
It's okay, I think it confuses everyone.
That's this.
I
this
can help
year's
drop an
funds, this
outline
year's-
anyway,
yeah.
and that can maybe bring up questions that take us into phase 2.
Totally, but yeah, if that's
But-
something that you'd be
Yeah.
willing to kind of just,
Yeah.
Yeah, Ramsey, I'm willing to
Okay, that sounds great. Because I get concerned because then people feel like they have an inside track even if they don't.
Mhm.
And that sets an odd relationship balance,
absolutely.
you know, and we don't wanna give that impression, even if it's not true, we don't wanna like give that impression, you know.
Totally. And then, yeah, who knows kind of what cool opportunities that then that might open up, even if people have more time that they're willing to wait, then we can potentially, you know, budget it in for future years or something like that. Okay, great, thank you. With that, is there anything else that anyone would like to share or any public comment that we'd like to discuss before we adjourn?
Good meeting, good job.
Yeah, hearing none, would anyone like to make a motion?
I think page.
Just a small question. I wasn't sure how to word it, so I was half committed. So with the spray paint that was put on the Centennial mural, was the anti-graffiti still up?
It hadn't been applied
Oh,
yet.
okay,
so
so it
that's
wasn't,
why.
it wasn't an experiment to see how it would go. That's a bummer.
We do have the, Parks does have some things that have anti-graffiti paint on it,
Okay.
so they're usually able to clean it up quite easily.
Yeah, and I believe with the stuff that we requested Elise use, it's like we would then purchase, and I could link it to you, exactly what the cleaning agent that's specified for that, so that way the parks, we can have it on hand, whether it's the Parks Department that, you know, would go, or however that would work. I think, just one more thing that I'm thinking of is we'll probably want to chat with Elise about like what some signage would look like to have ready with the dedication event.
Yeah.
And maybe kind of just chatting with her like what the exact title of the mural is, and then we could maybe mock up some ideas that would go on the signage that already exists. So it would just be nice to have something that could go with the ribbon cutting already done. So
Yeah.
cool. All right, well with that,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
yeah, I'll consider it adjourned. Thank you guys so much for your time. Great, really appreciate it. Thanks.
We wrote it all down.
What to do?
That's really way to start before you like we get way too into it. And it's like, yeah, I mean, if there's
For the 1.5
yeah, if there's
thing,
not an
yeah.
appetite for it, then that's fine. But if there's an appetite for discussion, then
This is probably a good time too, just because we've demonstrated
yeah, exactly.
some movers, you know, the ability to get stuff out there.
Yeah,
so.
and the people, the community is really excited about it. And we just have so much success with all the cool things we've been doing. So how could they not want to keep it going?